I've been discussing abortion in classrooms for years. I always like to ask students to define the term abortion. And often they'll say, in fact, most often they'll say, it's the termination of a pregnancy. Well, of course, that's not right. The termination of a pregnancy is also a delivery. Then they'll say, well, then it's an intentional termination of a pregnancy. Well, I then remind them that a cesarean delivery or an induced delivery, either one, are intentional terminations of a pregnancy. What makes an abortion is death. After all, at least when I last worked in hospital, the technical term for what we usually call a miscarriage is a spontaneous abortion. And we don't call it a miscarriage unless the infant, the fetus, zygote, embryo dies. Otherwise, it's a premature delivery. So it has to have a death in order to have an abortion. The question isn't, is abortion death? The question is abortion a wrongful death? People will also want to say, it's my body. I can do what I want with it. Well, no, you can't. And not just because of uteruses, but because of fists, headbutts, all kinds of things I can do with my body that we all agree in advance are immoral. If I strangle you with my bare hands, I can't say, well, it's my body, I'm just doing what I want with it. I'm not saying that these are positions that are entirely wrong, but they are naive. They don't really understand everything going on here. Someone who does is J.J. Thomson. Thomson is going to tell us about a violinist, a minimal good Samaritan, and how these things play a role in defending the morality of some abortions. Thomson begins her discussion, her defense of abortion, by saying that while she's not convinced that the fetus is a person, at least in its earliest stages, that doesn't mean the fetus and its right to life necessarily outweigh the mother's right to her body. As I've said already here, my body, my choice doesn't really cut it. There are all kinds of choices that you can make to use your body that are wrong choices. She says, let's just imagine that the fetus is a person from the moment egg meets sperm. What then? She proposes a thought experiment. And in her day, it was a serious thought experiment because in her day, 1971, when this was written, attaching people to attaching to each other kidney to kidney was a possibility that might have been investigated. The idea of organ transplant really hadn't taken hold yet, and neither had artificial kidneys. Okay. She says, imagine you wake up one morning and you're attached by tubes to a world-famous violinist whose kidneys are failing. However, if he can keep from using those kidneys for 9 months, If your kidneys can be used to keep the violinist alive for 9 months, then there's a good chance that the violinist's kidneys will return to function and the violinist will be able to go off and lead their own life. You don't need to be there. Okay? Okay. Do we really think that the violinist has a right to that? Of course, what she's doing here is parodying the case of becoming pregnant. Unwittingly, unknowingly, unintentionally becoming pregnant. How good is the analogy? Well, I'll leave you to decide, but I don't find it terrible. She tries to look at some of the objections, but it's not too different. As I say, if one set out to try to become with child, then no, it has to be a case of unintentional pregnancy for this to happen. And again, short of abstinence, there is no foolproof method of birth control. So that's no way around that part, okay? You can try all the birth control you like. Say, oh, you didn't try hard enough. Unless you didn't have sex, you didn't try hard enough. You're absolutely right. But you had sex. So now what? This is an accidental outcome. What if it's rape? So, we're offered a series of analyses trying to determine under what conditions, if any, you do not owe a debt to someone of such a nature that you'd have to give up your right to your body to protect their right to their life. With each of these analyses, she creeps closer and closer to what I like to call the Henry Fonda thought experiment. Any of you who don't know who Henry Fonda is, you're here, or you can look it up on YouTube. Look him up on YouTube. Fine actor. The point is this. She says, I am ill. And I am in California. I know that I would recover from my illness if only Henry Fonda would come and put his hand on my hand and say, there, 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 there. But Henry Fonda is in New York, and I am in Southern California. Let's imagine I'm right. That Henry Fonda coming, patting my hand and going, there, 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 will make me well. Does that mean he has to drop everything he's doing and come to Southern California because it will help me stay alive? This is the importance of the minimally decent Samaritan. Thomson tells the story of the Good Samaritan from the New Testament and suggests, okay, that's a good Samaritan. It's entirely possible that instead of just taking the person he's found on the roadside down to the nearest inn and leaving him with enough money to get along, the Samaritan could have just simply taken that person on with them and fed them well and clothed them in wonderful clothes, made him a member of the family. This we might call a splendid Samaritan. And again, asking that of someone might be asking too much. But she says there's certainly a point of minimal decency. There's a story elsewhere from Peter Singer who talks about a child in a puddle. Only takes 4 inches of water to drown in. So we'll make it a 6-inch deep puddle. That's going to get up above your ankles if you walk out into it. But Singer says you don't walk past a child in a 6-inch deep puddle. Yes, it's going to inconvenience you. It's going to cost you time. God knows what that kid's been up to. You're going to get your pants wet or your shoes and socks anyway. What then? You do it because it's the minimally decent thing to do. We're not asking you to adopt the child and raise it as your own. We're not asking you to go looking for the mother. We're simply saying get the kid out of the puddle, bring them over here somewhere that the child will be safe. At least as far safe as you can make them under the circumstances. So the question comes round to, what then, how then does this tie to the case of the abortion? Thomson discusses the extreme view. And in the extreme view, we don't care about the mother at all. All we care about is the child. The child has we're competing the child's right to life versus the mother's right to use her body. And if we take the extreme view, then we've reduced mothers to baby machines. We've reduced women to baby machines. If you're not making a baby, then who cares? And if you are making a baby, who cares? It's the baby we care about. All right. I think we can see where that has problems. These problems come not only from this minimalization of the humanity of the mother, but also in the understanding that what if the condition is such that the preservation of the infant makes the mother's life at risk? Now it's not right to life versus right to body, it's right to life versus right to life. And surely the mother's right to life is more important. Well, maybe not always, but usually, at least some of the time. Just as in any case where you have competing rights, you have to choose between. One is going to be the more important to protect. Two people have right to the same piece of property. Something has to be done to sort that out. Some people have competing rights to life under certain conditions. You're going to have to sort that out. And at least some of the time you're going to choose one party, and some of the time you're going to choose the other party. Okay. So we back off from the extreme view a little bit. We try to take something we say, okay, when the mother's right to life is at risk, okay. The mother gets top choice. Okay, that's a time. See? Competing rights to life. She considers a rather ridiculous alternative, which says, okay, if the mother is willing to do the abortion herself, then you can have abortion. Really? What's your body? It's your right to. Yeah, but if it's my right to my body, if it's my life that needs to be protected, I can get anybody to help me protect my life. I mean, that is the whole job of the police and the army, and friends and relatives will protect my life. So I don't have to protect my life alone. So that right to life has to be settled. Now, it's also suggested, well, there is a particularly unique situation here, that this is the mother has made the child and therefore has a unique obligation to it. Well, I mean, one can only be reminded of the old joke about the father. I brought you into this world and I can take you out of this world. Well, that might be a little ridiculous, but at the same time, the point's not misstated. Yes, there is a unique responsibility, but that responsibility brings with it certain privileges. And certainly the honest assessment of the situation should suggest that the parent is the best judge here. Indeed, throughout most of childhood, when we've already acknowledged the burgeoning personhood of the child, where we do expect the parent to make all the choices. And in this case, the parent might need to choose, for whatever good reason offered, might choose the abortion. Which drags us back around to the minimally decent Samaritan. I think it's fair to say that she wants to suggest that you reach a point in the course of the pregnancy wherein it seems like you're inconveniencing yourself very little, as opposed to the killing of the child in utero. In which case, abortion would be wrong. Not because abortion is in and of itself wrong, but because as a minimally decent Samaritan, you really should stick that much out. The so-called very late-term abortions are the sorts of things here that she's going to call immoral. So she's not calling all abortion moral, just those in which the mother's life is at risk, where the mother as parent judges the situation best that abortion be performed, and certainly not on occasions where all we're looking at is inconvenience, however great that inconvenience might be, so long as it isn't life-threatening. She realizes that this position will leave her under criticism from some quarters. The most important thing here is she wants to make it clear she's not arguing for killing the fetus. It is not a case of, anytime these things happen, you should kill the fetus. Even if your life is at risk, even if your well-being is at risk, even if your best judgment indicates that perhaps this fetus will not have all such a wonderful opportunity when it grows, she's not saying, well, therefore you must abort. Not at all. All she's saying is those who wish to abort are morally justified in doing so. That there are enough threats to their moral well-being that the death of the infant is morally permissible. Don Marquis says, no. Now, what concerns Don Marquis isn't so much the relative rights of a fetus as it is the question of why is killing wrong? Why is killing human beings wrong when killing other things, certainly plants and most forms of animals, considered perfectly okay? What Marquis suggests is that human beings have a particular set of characteristics that enable them to see into their future, that they're aware of reality, they belong, they're conscious, and they have a kind of future which enriches themselves and others, creating a world that's a better world. That's their future. That's the kind of thing they can do. Maybe they're not doing it now, maybe they're not doing it yet, but they can do it. They may never get around to doing it, but it can happen. There is a future there that is different from the kind of future these other things have. And that difference makes a difference. That it explains why so much of what appears to be hypocrisy on the part of human beings is not. We kill cows, but we don't kill our children. Why? Are cows not as smart as children? Well, I experienced, no, they're not. But that's not the point. The point is the cow has no future like mine. The point is my children will grow up to be like me and have a future like me in a world that is enrichable and realizable and improved over what we have now. There's a better reality possible through the realization of human potential. Where these other things, for the most part, he allows the possibility for exceptions, but for the most part, they just don't have that kind of future. People do. He acknowledges that neither the sperm nor the egg have that kind of future. In combination, they do, but alone, they do not. Thus, the joke from Monty Python about every sperm being sacred just isn't true, says Marquis. Only that zygote, that united set of gametes, that has the potential, the possibility of a future like a human being. So robbing a living human being of that future is wrong. Robbing the fetus, even the zygote, of that future is wrong. Now, he's going to be willing to concede, certain competing rights. Again, there may be times when it's okay, but almost without exception. And it's almost entirely without exception, abortion is wrong. Just because murder is wrong. And it's not wrong because of an appeal to a right to life, which is not clear I can make a case for in the case of the fetus, but rather because we are robbed of a future. Or maybe a better way of putting it, although I don't recall that he puts it that way, what we mean by the right to life is a right to that future. And since I have a right to that future, because it is a possible future, whether I am a living, breathing human being or whether I am zygotes. The fact that I have that possible future entitles me not to be killed. On the other hand, we have Michael Tooley. Tooley suggests that what gives us our rights is our personhood. Now, he doesn't want to be vague about personhood. He wants to say what makes a person is personality. Okay? Now, go down to the psychology department. Ask them to define personality. Don't ask me. I'm a philosopher. But when you go down and you talk to the psychology department about what counts as personality, you discover that fetuses certainly don't have personalities. Newborns don't really have personalities. In fact, the full development of the personality doesn't really happen until around 3. Thus, up to that point, infanticide is justifiable. Now, don't construe Tooley to mean let's go out and kill small children. No. His point is simply that personhood is perhaps not the tool we want to use, because surely the only genuinely confirmable description of personhood we have is personality. It's all well and good to talk about a future like mine, but what is a future like mine? I mean, really, what is a future like mine? If futures like mine, how like mine do they have to be? If they're enough different, I mean, clearly no one's saying let cockroaches take over the world. Their futures are not enough like ours. Well, how close do they have to be? That cow a minute ago, some people will say their future's plenty enough like mine and we shouldn't kill them. Okay, hurrah. But what about oysters? I mean, really, it is nonsense to say that an oyster has a future like me. Certainly not carrots. So how do you draw that line? What does a future like mine really mean? Well, if we turn to an empirically observable trait like personality, well, then we start winding up with this strangeness. I really think Tooley's point is personhood, not such a great tool. Let it go. Let's look at other things, other approaches to deciding whether or not to permit abortion. Plenty to think about, plenty to talk about. Keep on talking philosophy.